What is up, App Nation? It is Steve P. Young, founder of appmasters.com, the place you go when you want action-packed content related to helping you grow your downloads and, more importantly, those revenues. And today I've got a phenomenal guest. Look, one of my favorite things and one of the things I'm most grateful for having this platform is people I get to see from the very beginning and people I've known for years just like take off like a rocket ship. And that's what this guest is today. I interviewed him when he created his app called Four Snaps way back in like 2013, 14 range when he was just 13 years old. He's gone on to major success, writing a book, working for Facebook, now building social AI, and his commentary on AI, especially in the social space. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. So without further ado, let's bring in Michael Sayman. Michael, welcome back, my friend. Things are different, but things are still the same too.
Yes,
dude, congratulations.
Right. Thank you so much. I mean, it's been an incredible journey. I can't believe it. And it's awesome to catch up again after so many years.
You're an author now, since we've spoken, right? You're an author now. You've gone to work for Google, Meta, Roblox, and now you built this great app that became a viral phenomenon called SocialAI. So kudos to you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a wild journey, right? And at the end of the day, I just have fun building stuff, and I'm just trying to find my way through the tech industry. And so far, it's been quite a roller coaster. So
you're gonna say like I've been doing this for 20 years, and you'll still be in your 30s. That'll be freaking phenomenal.
Oh, that's right. I mean, it's one of those things. I think a lot of people, in Gen Z too, who got started young, I think have just had such an incredible opportunity because the internet has allowed so many of us to learn from resources all over, from YouTube, from all these different websites that are accessible and allow people to like learn how to code without having to go to a formal education that might be more expensive or is harder to reach. So I'm excited to see how many more kids out there are going to be building things in the coming years.
I know. I remember way back in the day, there were so many of you guys, these kids, that were like, hey, this 15-year-old.
Yeah. I'm nothing, compared to these 15-year-old kids. It's incredible to see what they're doing.
No, even back then, dude, when you were 13, I would hear all these people because even some of the, nascent, like really old cross-platform code builders were able to like pump out and like, hey, I remember this like 15-year-old who made a game too, and he got some press and got some downloads and all that stuff too.
That's
so
right,
yeah,
we had awesome. We were kind of there was this whole crew around 2014, 2015 of like high school kids, and we were all like hacking and building apps, and fun because we all stay in contact, and so many of them went on to like build these massive companies and kind of work in all of these big spaces. And it's just incredible to be able to see this community of high school kids kind of grow into a whole generation of tech, giants, really. I'm like blown away by it.
Well, Michael, I know I'm going to try to link up the Vergecast interview that you did over there. I thought it was a phenomenal interview, but I know from this, so congratulations on SocialAI. It's actually something you've been thinking out for, what was it, like 5-6 years now?
Yeah, that's right. I spent a long time trying to get to something like this. To me, this felt like, I think, a natural progression in the steps towards building a more conversational search engine on the internet. I just felt like there are interfaces in social networks that make it very easy for people to find content that they're looking for, and make it easy for them and natural for them to be able to debate different topics and answer questions they don't have answers to. And so I thought for a while, like, how can we integrate a social networking experience to searching the web or to finding answers to things and trying to use the internet in that content consumption way. And in the beginning, it was actually really hard. Before OpenAI released their GPT-2, GPT-3 models, where they had original just text completion, way before all of that, I tried building it hard coded. So giant if else statements, very bare bones, and it just wasn't right. It just felt more like Farmville, or you're clicking on these buttons and getting these reactions. And it didn't quite fit. So I paused on the game at that point, and I told myself I gotta wait a little bit and put it on the shelf. And I have like this backlog of apps that I just keep in my notes app. And I keep them there until the tech is ready for them to work in the way that's best. And every few months I'd come back and I'd build another version of SocialAI. When GPT came out, I thought, well, let's use the text completion. Didn't quite work well. It was really expensive at the start, and it wasn't following instructions well. And so I just kept going back and back. And as the models kept getting better, I kept building new versions with each model and waiting until just the right moment when that structure of the models outputs from OpenAI and Anthropic were cheap enough, malleable enough, and advanced enough in their ability to respond, so that I'd be able to put out a product that can really showcase what the social interface can do.
Yeah, I love it, man. And just for those who aren't familiar with SocialAI, Michael, maybe I'll try my best. How about that? It is a social network entirely powered by AI. And Michael, I don't know if you know Ethan, who did Parallel Live, but he does
Of
a
course.
fake live streaming app, and I had him on a few weeks ago. So fascinated by his space, because I think your guys' take on social AI and a social network purely built on AI, very, very interesting.
Oh yeah, it's quite a space. To me, I really feel like it's a utility. I think there's some fun in trying to find ways to build fake, celebrity status games and things like that. I think that's fun.
Yes.
But what I really tried doing here was trying to show that building a social network interface for interacting with content. So let's say you ask a broad question and you get all of these responses back from different AIs. Being able to do that is a very natural way to search for answers. Something that the internet hasn't done before. It's interesting because there's really two types of questions people can ask. There's questions that have singular answers, like what is 1 + 1, in which case you don't really want a variety of answers. You just want one, right? And I think traditional computers are really good at those questions. They just give you the answer every time. You pump it into the calculator on your computer, and you're certain it will always tell you 1 + 1 is 2. But then, there's this whole other host of questions on people's minds that don't really have a singular correct answer, right? Like, what should I have for dinner today is not a question that has one answer. Maybe there are a number of different ideas for what I might have for dinner, and depending on what I see and what looks good in the moment, I might decide to weigh my options and pick the best, or maybe go impulsive and find the first thing I see. And the fact that life is like that, and that we ask those questions, means that the process of discovering the answer is very much a part of our experience in asking it too. And trying to build an AI model that gives you the correct answer for these types of questions leads people to feeling like the product isn't very good, even when it's genius, right? So I'll give an example here. OpenAI's models are brilliant. They can answer pretty much anything in terms of the probability structure that it has. But when you try to ask it a question that has multiple answers, you'll see the model struggle to output. And that struggle is not so much in not knowing the correct answer, but in trying to fit all of the possible answers into a singular, distilled, washed out, averaged out answer that doesn't really, contain much of an opinion on anything. And it kind of leads us to feel dissatisfied. And I think, anyway, I think there's opportunity there. And so that's kind of why I built SocialAI. I felt like there are questions that feel more natural being answered from different perspectives, where then we get to weigh the options and make the decision for ourselves. And I think that's why people go on Facebook and Instagram to ask questions that are broad and vague, like what should I have for dinner? and then they go to Google, or ChatGPT really to try and ask those more concrete questions, like how many calories in a grilled chicken, right? Like, and that distinction I think is important. And it's part of why I joined Meta, right? Like the company is really well positioned to solve those problems in my view.
Well, we have a question. Feel free to dodge this if you want. But he said he didn't ask right that. Speaking of them, did Meta acquire it?
Well, I'm not gonna talk about the details of,
All right,
my.
don't worry. I'll go over it. Fridays are made. Thank you, Miguel. Let's turn it positive.
Oh no, but what I will say is the moment Meta saw, social AI, and the moment X and some of the folks at XAI saw social AI, there was an instant excitement about the product, and so
Yeah.
it wasn't an easy decision for me. But at the end of the day, the way that I see it is a lot of the ideas that I had around social AI and a lot of the potential in the product, I think are going to show themselves throughout every tech company out there, including XAI and Meta AI and OpenAI. And we're going to see these companies kind of explore a lot of what social AI touched on. And I mean, for me personally, having grown up working at Meta when I was like 17, it's such a full circle moment for me. I couldn't be happier. And honestly, it's great to be back. It's nostalgic and it's a little weird because I have to go doing an apology tour to all the all the people I used to work with for being a teenager and being an annoying teenager for so many years. But it's great. It's great.
Well, now you can have a drink with them if that
Yeah.
is something you do.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. So I want to give you guys an example to the audience. I put into social AI. I was like, hey, I'm excited to interview Michael Sayman tomorrow. I didn't give you anything, right? Like I was like, hey, what question should I ask him that would help fellow app founders? And they knew instantly that they were like, hey, what did you face as a young entrepreneur? And how did you overcome them? And I hearted it. I was like, I love this one. And that's what I commented back. Maybe ask him about passion's role, favorite mistakes, what lessons they taught him. So Michael, let's use social AI. What challenges did you face as a young entrepreneur and how did you overcome them?
yeah. Honestly, I think this is great, by the way, asking questions. I think probably the biggest challenge I faced was trying to quickly identify my strengths and weaknesses and leaning into those. I think
Mm,
when you're young, it's hard to know what you should spend most of your time doing and what you should skip over or delegate to somebody else. And as I got older, I was so excited about the apps. I wanted to try and do it all. And I realized very quickly that there were some things that it would take me a little bit less time than other people at getting good at. And there were other things that I just struggled to get good at when other people around me who weren't even trying could just do. And identifying those is really hard because what it requires is an acknowledgement that one is just not as capable in many things. And looking for that, I think, has been one of the toughest challenges growing up. As soon as I knew it, though, as soon as I could identify, oh, bad at product management, good at, product intuition, bad at stable infrastructure, good at, rapid interface iteration. Like as soon as I could like identify these things, I immediately set out to set myself up so that I could spend the most time getting done the things I could do well, and I could set aside time to really learn how to improve on those other skills. And it took me time because I had to go back and I think at one point I was building these apps and I was relying on services like Firebase and services like Versal to build the backend infrastructure for my apps. And I did so because I wasn't good at the backend stuff. And I was a little bit scared that building with backend, I wouldn't know what to do. And I wanted to move fast. And so I'd skip over it. But I realized over time that skipping over some of these things, while it's advantageous, can lead to a bit of a growth paralysis where the person no longer continues to expand on their potential, but rather hits a ceiling.
mm,
And so for me, it meant having to put a pause on some of the apps that I was building for a bit, going back to YouTube, going back to square one, and learning the basics of how to program for infrastructure. And doing that, I spent maybe 2 or 3 months just watching these videos from the start. Someone who people would say, why the hell is he going to, back to doing these things? He's spent 6 years in the industry and worked on all those things back then, right?
Yep.
And the answer is, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been able to build something like SocialAI. I wouldn't have been able to understand some of the details to how to build an authentication system that works well. And so these are little steps that I think were kind of the toughest to learn, because at many times it feels like a step back to tell yourself you have to go back and learn something at an earlier stage. But taking those little breaks to go back and do these things leads to just better outcomes in the future. And once I was able to learn how to do the backend infrastructure, I was then able to get a sense of who in the industry is really good at that, which is important when you're looking to hire people, right? If you don't have a grasp of what a good marketing campaign looks like, or what a good backend infrastructure looks like, when you're looking to hire somebody to do that job, it's really hard to get a sense of if that person's going to do it well or not, if you have no clue, right? So anyway, that was a little bit of some of the things that I struggled
it, man.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I love it. And one of the things I loved about SocialAI as I was using it and poking around about it, how fast it is. Like you can pretty much tweet, or it's pretty much like a tweeting. Here, let me show off the app to the users too. So you go back and you can say whatever's on your mind. And obviously I put in, and in the beginning, you get to pick your supporters. So this is who I picked with. I was like, hey, supporters, skeptics, thinkers, optimists, critics, and you can pick which ones of your followers you want. And then you can just type anything. And I put first, I was like, hey, I'm excited to interview. And you can see a lot of the different questions. And I really like how you can engage with this one. And Curious Quinn says, are you looking for groundbreaking insights or usual fluff? And I said, groundbreaking insights. Why not both? You can do both. And you get to see more interactions based off of that too. And so I really like how you thought about SocialAI, because Michael, as I was listening to the Vergecast too, and I was thinking through what you were talking about, it did feel like you were sort of combining all the what's the right word? All the needs that we need as humans, like that connection, being able to vent, that interaction. It's hard to interact with normal people. And I thought the story when you're like, hey, I thought of this idea because I got in a fight and I wanted to rant. And I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Like, this is the best way to rant and ask questions.
That's right. I think there's a lot of truth to it. I also think my experience in having worked at Facebook in the past helped me understand that the interface that we use, like how we comment, why we have comments in a certain order, why we're able to like and post and reply, and why we use these tools and how they serve us, helped me understand a little bit about how we can then take advantage of the language models and all these AI tools that we have to interact with them. And it sounds obvious when you use the app. That's one of the things that I thought was so cool about it. Was it's a weird concept. Everyone I talk to about it goes, ooh, that's strange. And they open it up, they try it once, they scroll through, and obviously, it's a prototype app. It's a bare bones kind of hacky put together thing, but you can instantly, as soon as you use it, you can instantly see, oh, okay, there's some value here that you haven't tapped into before, right? And that instant feeling is the part that's the most exciting. And I think it's a testament to the fact that as people, we're not really good at knowing what we want. We're not very good at articulating what we want. But using an app where it kind of floods you with ideas whenever you have a question, and you're just able to tap on the ones that you find interesting, and then tapping on those drills down to more content and more ideas, and you tap on the other one, and by tapping, it's a way of prompting the model. It's a way of prompting the AI without having to type anything, without having to say anything via voice or via text. And that natural indication where you can just tap around, and as you tap in, you drill down and get more details on things and learn new things you hadn't discussed. It's navigational. It's different. It's a different kind of interaction. It's fun.
And I think we like having a community too.
That's
You know,
right.
part of it is seeing different people, not just the same person interacting with that one person that you might on like a chat GPT thing
That's
too.
right. And it
Uh,
helps the AI model because
yep.
when you go on ChatGPT, it doesn't know what kind of answer you're looking for. But when you give all of these responses to a user, someone being able to like one or like another helps the model and the app overall understand which types of responses are more interesting to you. And
Mhm.
over time, the model starts learning your preferences and starts responding with more, more content that relates to you and engages you. And it really is to me, feels like a natural next step for a lot of these platforms.
I think this is a great question by Sage Thought Stream through social AI. What if you explore the balance between innovation and practicality? Because you know, you kind of did 5 years ago. Maybe it wasn't practical, but now it's like, okay, maybe this is the right time. Costs are down, like you said in the very beginning, and people are now already using ChatGPT, interacting with one person, now
That's
opening up to multiple people. Seem like I don't know. I'm answering your question, Michael. It's your
right.
question. My bad.
No, I completely agree. I think I think what's interesting about this question and innovation practicality here is that
Yeah.
like on the practical side, if you build something that's too unfamiliar to users, it's going to take a long time for them to get used to it. And I think this is something about marketing that I've learned too with building apps, which is you don't want to present something too unique, too different, from what they've seen before. And my favorite example, obviously, and a lot of people's favorite examples, is the iPhone. And when Steve Jobs launched that, he didn't want the icons to look too different or the interface to be too unfamiliar. And I think the reason you don't want to do that is you want people to be able to pick up the new thing, drop the old thing, and not feel like they are struggling to do so. You want to make it as easy as possible for the person to grab the thing they're doing, put it down, and pick up the thing that they need to do next without concern. And so for me, the goal originally was, how do I build a tool that makes it easier for people to find and discover information within the language models? But if I said that to the average user, they'd look at me like, what are you talking about? Like, like, what does that even mean? And so I set out not to invent a new interface, but to find an interface, to find apps and services that people use today that help them do similar things, and said, I'm not going to change a thing. I'm going to make it look exactly like that. And that's so important, because when you're able to do that, you get just this natural interaction from people. Nobody's learning. Like, my mom uses it. She's like 50. She like loves using it and doesn't have a question about how it works. And it's the first time, because I've built a lot of apps. She tells me, she's like, usually I'm proud of you, but like, it's not it's not the same. Yeah. I'm like, uh-oh.
Michael, I was actually I wrote that down in my notes. I was like, there's a book called Mom Test. Like, if your mom can use your product, you've made it. And you literally have the Mom Test story.
Exactly that, and it's incredible. It's incredible to see it. It made me feel pretty good. And that's really what I go after, is can I build a product that makes people feel good, that makes people feel like it's solving a problem for them. And I think we're going to see a lot of products like this coming up over time. I think you already start to see a little bit of it. For example, ChatGPT search came out, and a lot of the options that are shown there, and search questions that they show in examples, are broad questions like, where should I go for dinner? So they're really trying to tackle these broader questions. I'm curious to see if Meta AI or OpenAI are able to get there first.
Yeah. Well, Meta has an advantage now. All right. Nurek says, let's go. All right. I do want to say hi to a few people. Uplift from the Netherlands. We got Luis from Venezuela. Thank you, Luis. I always forget where Luis is from. Natik is here too. Patrick, PJ. And then Hakeem says this. He's got a great question. How did you go about marketing? It became a viral sensation. I know you had probably some connections way back in the day, but how did you go about first thinking through your official launch of the product?
Yeah, I think one of the toughest things was striking a balance between creating something interesting for people to check out and not kind of diverging too much from what the product is. I think a lot of times people will promote products in such a way that like create this outrage and anger. I think there's a lot of these like Riz apps out there
Yeah.
that people go and say, oh, like just use this and pretend like everything you're being everything you're being is authentic when everything you're being is inauthentic, and use it to lie to people. Like it's like these apps that like are kind of like the darkest pattern of social interaction that you can come up with AI models, right? And they do really well. And I understand why they do well, right? Like they do attract people, but you want to make sure you don't push on that boundary too far. But you also don't want to build a product that's boring and forgettable. So what I like to say is you got to be right on the fence, right on the line there, where you're building something interesting, but as you talk to it and you start to use social AI, for example, or you start to use the product, you start to realize, wait a minute, okay, this has like some tangible utility. It was an interesting concept when I heard about it, because it's a little bit like that's a little weird. But you want to keep it right there, and that middle ground, I think, is the sweet spot for building a lot of these products. You don't want to build something that crosses the line and is like the risk thing. At least I personally don't want to do that, right? And you also don't want to build something that's boring and forgettable. So being able to build something that kind of hits right in that sweet spot, I think allows for conversation to take place about the product, gets people excited and curious about it. And then once they open the app, if you really do have something of value to show, people will see it, and it'll become instant.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen other apps, I'm doing this for you and I have been doing this for a very long time. So I've seen apps like really take off and get viral and then just go right back down. And so you see the curve going up and then right back down. You didn't release this. That's where the fence comes into play.
Right. That's right. And in being able to like get these media outlets, a lot of times people will reach out to journalists. They'll reach out to a bunch of people and say, hey, look, I built this app. Hey, look, I built this product. Do you want to write about it? Do you want to write about it? And that was my approach in high school. Like I would just send people, hey, do you want to write it? This was, I think, one of the first times in my experience where there were articles being written about social AI without me even knowing who was writing about it or when they were going live. Sometimes I'd get a message from a journalist last minute saying, hey, we're going live. We're publishing an article about your app. Do you have any comment before we go? And I'm like, I don't know. Like it's such a different experience. And I think it just goes to show that we live in a different era now than we used to around marketing, where if you truly build something that captures people's attention on the internet, there will be press about it. Like people will talk about it, right? If not, then you gotta have to do that work to reach out to these audience members or reach out to these different networks and publications as well. So to me, it really feels like you want to build something that captures that attention, and then the process of getting people to talk about it becomes a consequence of what you've built. And I think that's just the healthiest way to start it.
I love how you started. Is there anything from, did you just tweet about it? Like, how did you go about it? Like, did you just post it? Michael, you hit submit, go live on After Connect.
That's all I did. I just posted about it and that was it. And the reason I did it this way, by the way, was I knew I could push my app further if I like reached out to people and tried to hype it up and do all these things. I knew I could, but when you do that, you kind of camouflage and cover up the potential virality or interest from the public on a product. And so instead of trying to reach out to press and inflate the product, I wanted to test just how powerful of an idea it could be with the least amount that I could do. And so I went ahead and I just posted a tweet that had like a couple paragraphs of why I built what I built. And I said, if people like it, they will come, right? Like that was all I thought. And I said, and this is, and I put the bar there and I said, I'm not reaching out to nobody else. I'm just posting this. We'll see. The reason I did this is because if my product is truly going to resonate with people, then this should be enough. I told myself, if I do anything more to try and push it, it's going to be hard for me to know if this product truly has traction, or, if I'm like, or not, right?
Michael, can I ask you? Look, so I love this, and so does Hakeem. Interesting, but I love that. Okay, so there was September 16th. I think this is The Verge. The Verge wrote it on the day after. My computer's going so slow. September 17th. So it worked. Now,
Yes.
Michael, like I'm gonna go the skeptic. Okay, I know you didn't pick this on social AI, but I'm being the skeptic here. Okay, you have 37,000 followers. You have a pretty decent following.
That's
Would you
right.
still do the same if you had, I don't know, 37 period, no thousand?
So yeah, that's a great question. I have all these followers. Most of the followers on social media that I have completely inactive. If you looked at most of my tweets, besides those, those couple of ones, there's like maybe tops 100 likes. Some of these, for example, that podcast one I shared, I got like, I don't know, like a couple dozen, 50, some, I don't know, right? So like very few likes on most of my tweets. The thing is, people then look at the top tweets, right? That one there has 13 likes. So, when I built Force Snaps too, and I built the past apps, I get like no likes. No one would interact with it. When I was building SocialAI and sharing screenshots of my app, no one would like my screenshots. No one cared until I made the post where I announced I launched it with a link. And so sometimes it just goes like wildfire and get catches. Other times it doesn't. If you don't have a lot of followers at all to start with, though, my best suggestion would be to tweet about it and then grab your tweet and send it via a direct message to other people that are in the industry whose DMs are open. Don't give them more context. Don't, try to pitch them on the product, but simply just share what you posted and share it via DMs. People, especially people on Twitter, are always looking to find the next big product. And if you can just get them to see your post, they will give it 3 or 5 seconds to read what the hell it is. And if in 3 to 5 seconds, you can get them to think this is interesting, then it's solved, right? The simple attraction of, I think it's kind of evident when you read the posts that I created around SocialAI that it created an instant curiosity from people, because the product kind of pushes the boundary a little bit, right? And that product push, that boundary push, really does kind of entice people to look more into it. And so I think this goes back to marketing the product and positioning the product right in the middle, right in that sweet spot where people are interested enough to check it out. And when doing so, if you don't have the following, like, I have my thousands of followers, whatever. If you don't have the following, grab what you tweeted and share it via DMs with people who are in the industry. And really that's all you want to do. You don't want to oversell it. You don't want to try to like wrap your product up in all of this like fluff talk, because when doing that, you're only hurting the feedback that you need about how to improve your product.
Yeah, I love it. And I love how you just made it personal too, right? And it's not like this is the next best thing. No, you're like, nope, this is personal to me. It feels more like a mission statement. So I asked my team, Hisanchu, if we can just link up this tweet so that those who get inspired can do exactly what Michael.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I was making my decision about what I would tweet because I knew this was all I was going to do. I was just going to tweet it. So I told myself, well, it's very important. If I'm going to tweet about my product, I'm going to post about it. What am I going to say? And in the beginning, I actually was thinking, obvious first attempt was just, I'm going to talk about the product and how it works, and that's it. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I thought, like, how do I describe this app to my friends when I talk about it? How do I talk to them about what I built? And the truth is, when I talk to my friends about it, I bring up the story of how it came to be. And I talk a little bit about how I struggled during COVID and how I wanted to have the ability to like feel heard sometimes and debate different perspectives and potential solutions to problems that I have. And how I kind of struggled doing that on the internet today, and how I tried to build something for this, but the tech wasn't there until now, and really focusing on the story of why, so that people understand where I'm coming from with the product. And I think the combination of that with a product that just has like a very like interesting premise just in itself was key. I think people underestimate also the name of your product. I think it's very important that naming your product, it really matters. Like people say, oh, you know, if it's successful, it's like, no, it really, really matters, especially when you don't have like billions of dollars in backing to like get attention. Like your product's name, you know, can make or break it. And this was the toughest thing for my app. You might think like, wait, SocialAI, like that's such an obvious name. Like, why would it take so long to, you know, come up with a name? Because it wasn't obvious to me at the start. I actually went through maybe 50 or 60 different name ideas, and all of the different names. I had an app called Feedback. I called it at one point generative social. I had a bunch of different, you know, names, and I ultimately landed on SocialAI because, and this is weird, but like whatever. I like was talking to my dad. I was talking to my mom about it, and I said, like, I don't know. I went to visit them down in Miami. I said, I don't know what to call it. I'm done with the app. I submitted it, but I don't know what to call it. And I, you know, I'm launching it in like 2 days. And they were like, well, what name ideas do you have? And I said, well, this one Feedback, this other one, you know, whatever. And they kind of looked at me and were like, well, what was the first name that came to mind? And I was like, well, SocialAI, but that's too big of a name. Like that's, you know, like that's too literal. I thought we need something a little bit more sophisticated. I don't know. And they said, just go with what your gut told you the first time you thought of the name, and just go with it, because usually the first thing that comes to mind tends to be like the most obvious name, right?
Yeah.
And you can never be too obvious about the name. And so I thought to myself, I'm gonna pick SocialAI. And my favorite thing about the name is that you cannot talk about a competitor to SocialAI without saying the word SocialAI in the description of the app that they're building. And that's kind of part of it too, right? When you're building out a product, when you're building out a brand, you know, come up with a name that when someone else tries to build a copy of your original product, they have to use the name of your app to describe theirs every time.
I like that. I like that. That's a standing ovation, Michael. Oh man, that's hilarious, man. Sage advice from your parents as well. Akeem says, was it just created for iOS?
Yes. So the answer is yes. And the reason is because when building a new app, my favorite approach to this involves just getting initial reactions and initial data. You want to get a quick sense of how people are using it. And that doesn't mean you have to just build for iOS, but it means you have to build on the fastest or easiest timeline that you can. Android tends to have a lot of different quirks. There are many different devices with many different configurations, screen sizes, capabilities, cameras, and so on. And having those changes, having those differentiations within Android makes it really difficult to iterate quickly and to launch something and test it. And so I chose to go with iOS because Apple keeps all of their users on the same version of iOS with the same specifications, the same support. And so that just makes it a really good testing ground. That being said, if you're trying to build a product that resonates with a lot of people, and you're trying to get a product that like has an immediate revenue stream and an immediate market fit versus testing, you do want to expand to platforms like Android where you can reach the biggest audience. And so it really just depends on who is your audience, what country are they in, what's the usage look like. But from a testing point of view, iOS is just so easy.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I love it. All right, let's get into the app audit section of the show. And we like to start off, I don't know if you got any, Michael, but we like to start off every app audit segment with some dad jokes. You're young for this, but maybe you can
I love it.
But you got any jokes by any chance?
Dad jokes. No, that's actually the thing I'd say I'm the worst at. I am so bad at telling jokes.
Don't worry, the audience has your back. All right, we did this last week. I think, man, every week's blurry now. But if you win, if you beat me, we'll give you a free Indie App Santa promotion. So if you got a dad joke, get ready. You and I will compete. And if you beat me, you will get a free Indie App Santa promotion. All right, Michael, I'll give you one. Let me just make sure I have my sound ready to go. All right, Michael, what is $1 million? What is $1 million to a married man?
I don't know.
Wife changing money. There you go. All right. So if you got a joke, put it in the comments. I'll read it and then we'll vote and we'll play head to head. Come on, Akeem, give me one. All right. Jorge says, hey, Steve, when are you releasing the part 2 of the last video? We're going to release it next week. Jorge. So it's, yeah, I kind of teased you on that one, but it's a good video. And you know, Michael, to your point about social AI, the most successful apps that we've launched in the AI space, you know, we work with clients and the ones that have been successful, we just launched our latest one, has been just what you thought. Like social AI, blank AI. And I've been saying like blank AI is the way to go. Like call it whatever descriptive and just throw AI in like right behind it.
That's it. It's the easiest description to people. People get that. It works. It's kind of like I like to think of when the iPad first came out after the iPhone, and a bunch of apps started launching on the iPad, and they called their apps, you know, whatever plus, whatever.
Yeah.
Pro.
Oh yeah, dude.
They all use Pro and Plus, and it was just such a clear like distinction that no one, you know, everyone just kind of followed that. And when the consumer is used to expecting something from it, you don't want to make it harder for them. It's always about making it easier for them to understand. And so just going with it, right? And everyone just went, well, I'm going to make this and this app Pro. And everyone understood I had to pay a little more for that one, right? And,
right.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love it, dude. Yeah. It shows how long we've been in this. All right. All right. We have this app from Josh. Josh says he needs what they need help on. Overall experience, offered feature, and potential feature. Okay. So it's an app that allows you, let's take a peek. It's expense tracker, convenient metrics, useful graphs to view important metrics, list of contacts, custom budgets. That's the screenshot. Just describe it. Josh is here. All right, Michael. Right. Got any feedback on the screenshots?
Yeah, I've got one feedback that I just saw when I saw on the App Store, the name. So okay, 72, cool. That's the brand. Now the subtitle here says expense tracker. Now, the obvious thought here is call it expense tracker, right? Because that's what it is.
Expense tracker plus.
Right? But what you might want to do is focus on what are you solving for the person? So maybe something like save money, or something like, you know, like in that realm, right?
Yes.
Like
yep.
something that hits at the user's on the solution. What is the outcome of them having this product, right? What is the outcome downstream effect that they want? So for example, maybe not save money, but like to use as an example, when someone sees save money, they say, oh, how can I use this to save money? And say, oh, this allows me to do this. And you'll find a lot of other expense tracking apps on the App Store lean into that, right? And so anyway, that's the one thing that just calls out to me is I think when people see the screenshots, you want them thinking about how it's going to lead to that conclusion. And so if maybe instead of an expense tracker, you had something that leaned into that, you know, my little example of save money here, as I scroll through the screenshots, I say, oh, this will help me save money. This will help me save money. This will help me, you know, and so like I go through each screenshot and I'm remembering what they're trying to get me to do versus say, this is an expense tracker, you know, like it is. Right?
I like that. I like that. Go for the outcome, go for the solution, go for the benefits. Right. You can be like, save money. And then you're like, how? And we don't call it convenient metrics. Come on, Josh. I'm like, I didn't even know it was this, you know, expense tracker app because you put metrics. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are we, you know, we talking about B2B marketing here? I like this LinkedIn ad that I always hear. My dad is in B2B marketing. He's always talking about ROAS. I was like laughing. But anyways, we don't talk about it when we talk about money. We, like Michael said, save money, connect your accounts, create custom budgets, you know, and one of the, I'm trying not to give away secrets from people that I've talked to too, but I like what you said, Michael. Like, what is the benefit? How do you lead with that? What is the difference? There's so many expense trackers out there. What is the difference that makes Why did you build this, Josh? Like, what were you seeing in the market? Why are kind of like going back to Michael's tweet?
Yep.
Why did you decide to make this? Like, what were you frustrated by?
And then even in looking at, for example, like list of accounts, you can see that that is a list of accounts, but what is it that you offer as value to people? Maybe the answer there, instead of list of accounts, is to say something like link all of your bank accounts, or have all your bank accounts in one place, right? So now you're telling them what this offers them rather than describing what they're seeing in the screenshot, which they can see is a list of accounts. Right. And so maybe you don't want to describe the screenshot. Maybe you want to describe what value it offers.
I love it. I love it. Okay. I'm kind of use yours. Be the main character.
There you go.
That is it. Be the main character of your story. And Michael, we're always the main character of our own stories, right? And so you're just like, yep, you're leaning into a human emotion where we are the hero of our story. Everybody else is the villain. You're the support star.
Well, what's cool about it, and the main character aspect here, is the word main character here is kind of popular lately. A lot of young people have been talking about, being the main character, who's the main character, NPCs, all the rest. And so kind of leaning into that language and having a little bit of fun is always a good thing. As long as you're having fun with it and you're not, being too serious down that road, I think it's good to play a little bit with some of those terminologies that are popular, right? As you notice, like all of the screenshots offer like an indication of what it is, but all of the titles and the text that you see above are just about like what this outcome is for the user. How is this different from something else? I really like the third one where it says, private to only you.
Yep.
Right? Like I could have excluded that and not expressed it, and it could have been obvious to someone from seeing that it's just social people or AI people except for you. But by saying private only to you, it's like I'm leaning into this idea that social networks, while valuable, also carry this risk of being public and seen everywhere. And so really just highlighting these points about like, how is this app going to make it easier for you to do something? Really kind of went a long way. That being said, I definitely rushed these screenshots a bit. So
they look great, man. I like this too.
Kind of a first pass,
No. And I like how you didn't say like 100% secure, 100% private. You actually use words. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Because you're not trying to mislead all the way into the point where someone is thinking, oh, like this product is going to, offer me, free money. You don't want to be like free money, like you don't it's that length, right? Like you don't want to go out that route. What you want to do is basically explain to them how it's, how the product is a private space, but it's very clear that with these models and the internet, like the way that these things are stored, it's in a database, right? So you don't want to be like encrypted when it's not encrypted, right? So I think that's also very important. You have to be careful with that. And you want to make sure that when you do this, you don't, there's two reasons why you don't want to do that. One is, you don't want to like say something that's not true. But the second thing that I think is important to this is you're actually trying to convince your users to stay. So you want to set the expectations for the product around where your product actually is when they use it. Because if you don't do that and you veer too far off, people are going to download the product, expect something, and leave. And I'll tell you, with my app as a prototype, it really doesn't hit the mark of the expectation. Like there's a lot of stuff that's good about it. But with the prototype version, you expect something, and this is going to sound crazy, but people expect a social AI today that actually works like a real social network. If it doesn't fully work like that, they're out, right? And so because the expectations I've set for the product are so high, I would actually argue that one of the things I do better in following versions and how we integrate, in the future with Meta AI, whatever, is like actually bring those expectations way down. And match the user where the product is going to be. Because if you try to put it too high up, that mismatch will lead to churn and users will fall off. And there's nothing worse than marketing, getting a bunch of people download and then leaving, right? So you don't want to do that.
I love it. All right, let's get into Josh's app too. Great insights there. 72. We'll go through the onboarding experience. I haven't done anything. This is my first time opening the app. It's asking me for the location. I'll give it. Okay. And then we're in. All right, Michael. That's it. So ask me for my location and I'm in. So
first thought here is if you've got a new user and you're trying to figure out like how to I guess like onboard somebody, you do want to reduce the number of screens that they need to like get onto the product. But if you go too far and you reduce too many screens to get to the product, they end up not knowing like how to set it up and they don't get to see the value. So I would modify the goal of trying to reduce the number of steps to open the app from being have the least amount of steps. And I'd instead say have the least amount of steps so that when the user is done with all of the sign-up steps, they can see the value of the product and use it, right?
Yep.
So you want to make sure you get those steps in. You want to make sure, for example, that you're able to,
yours too.
Yeah, with SocialAI, this is one of the big things in the sign-up. I said, I want very small number of steps, but I want to be clear that I need to help users define what type of followers they're going to have, what type of interaction they're going to have, and what is the least that they need to do to set up the app. So I went ahead and I created that. The profile picture is optional. You just need a nickname, username, bio, hit next.
What's on your mind?
And that's it. And you go straight to what's on your mind and you post. And so
it was really fast too.
And it's super fast. And notifications, when do you get the notifications push? Once you've posted. Why? Because once you've posted, then you know that you're going to get these comments. Do you want them? Do you not want them replying to you later? And so that is kind of what you really want to achieve is what's the quickest way that you can get the user to see the experience of the product immediately. And some apps are going to take more steps. If you look at Apple's own apps, the Health app has like 20 steps when you're setting it up versus like the Clock app does not. And so that doesn't mean that if you have more steps, it's a bad product. It just means that that product requires more steps. But as long as you can reduce it to the fewest steps to get the user to use the product and see the value in it, that's what you got to do. If you reduce to too many steps, you're going to lose the user once they open the app and have no idea what to do.
Yeah. So Josh, he agrees too. Some 3 to 5 onboarding screens talking about the benefits, not the features. Lead with that. Show the features, put the words as the benefits, and then definitely have your paywall on the onboarding experience. I know you kind of bury it. It's not the way to go. Most people who buy during the onboarding experience.
That's
and so like you definitely want this paywall right here during the onboarding. And then if they hit X, maybe even lead them to like, input your first thing, kind of like Michael does. He's like, I asked for you to pay. If you don't want to, no problem. Hey, you ready to input your first thing? Cool. Get them to start using the app. And Michael asked me to tweet. Like, I don't think I could have done anything else besides say what's on my mind.
Yep. That's right. That's right. And, in a future version of SocialAI or some product like it, we would start off and just show people content instead of even having to ask them to post something. And so you always want to just kind of find ways to provide value to the user quickly. In terms of monetization, there's a really good way to do it with that expense tracking app, which is offer them a bunch of data, show them a bunch of stuff about their product in the NUCs as part of the premium. So you say, hey, look, here's all of these stats. Do you want to keep them? Do you want to have them in your product? And you click to pay, and then they're a part of your app. Or for example, once you're through the NUCs, you get to show them the screen with all of the content. And then you maybe have a section below that shows a blurred out section with more information. And all of these blurred out sections within that, when you tap on them, bring up the thing and say, hey, if you want these premium version or premium feature, just pay and you've got it.
Michael, I love your thoughts on this. And I know we're going long on time.
Oh, you're good.
I think right here, seeing an empty one feels wrong to me, right? Like, I think what you can show Josh too is play around with this. Like, I really like the screenshot where you can say like, hey, this is the type of data. Because when I'm just entering the app, I'm not going to see anything. So knowing that you either get me to input something or show me an example one so that I can get inspired by an example one and then just remove, like obviously once I start adding my own, because I think this feels empty. And it's like, nobody wants to be in an empty room.
That's right. And it looks beautiful. It looks clean. It looks nice. But if you want people to quickly populate the data, let's say they skip through the onboarding flow and they don't add any bank information or anything yet, and they want to get a sense, being able to do that, I think, is a great idea. I think also having very clear button somewhere that's super easy to tap while they don't have any data that says, enter your bank info right at the top. That makes it very clear that the app is communicating to the user, this is not the experience, like telling the user, you still need to do one more thing. And being clear about that so that the user doesn't look at the app and say, why is it like this? There's a lot of apps that show no data, but when they have those big buttons that say, you still got to do this, people go, oh, okay, it's not ready yet. I didn't fill it in yet. And it's almost like the app telling them, no, it's your fault. It looks like this, right? Oh, can't hear you, Steve.
Sorry, Michael. I was muting myself. I love that too. The app could say so much better when I was muted when I came out. The app could say like, this is the average savings that our user has. And so that's what I was saying too. Like you can make it look full, but then you can also hype up the benefits of your app. Like this is
That's
the
right.
average savings. All right, Michael, let's get in. Nobody has a joke. I'm disappointed. Dang,
I also
maybe
would say, like don't be afraid to put some of that marketing stuff into the app as well. Things about saving money, things about, all of that stuff going into the app as well. People put it in the screenshots. I think it's important, but go through until they fill out the whole flow of the app.
Agreed. All right, we got Refa's app, and he says mainly focus on paywall, so we will do that. But before I do that, I want to say looks like a learning app, like masterclass, something Udemy, things like that. So
Right away, I already see online learning. It's very literal. I get it, it is online learning, but tell me what I get,
Yeah.
When I look at, what do you call it? Like, I look at some of these other apps that are trying to really convince people to use them. Things that say more of that goal work better than, online learning. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the marketing of the Brilliant app. That's kind of like a Duolingo, but like for learning all kinds of things. They really lean into that when they talk about like what their product is for. And they lean into just showcasing, why use it, right?
Is it brilliant.org? Is that it? Learn by doing?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, that's right. And they say learn by doing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's telling you like what it does, how it does it, that it's different. And is Brilliant online learning? Yes, but there's a reason they don't say online learning, because they're trying to tell people what makes their product different.
This is a
And
beautiful website.
it really is. It's great. It's one of those things that I think like when you look at the screenshots, even in the app, it really talks about like those. It really shows that they're focused on trying to explain to the user why it's unique, why it's different. You don't see that with, for example, a lot of apps, and I think they do that well. And I think that ties into the online learning product. So I would lean on looking at those things. I also think this is maybe a weird hack for me, but I love to do it. It's when you're building a product in a space that you want to try and build a bigger audience with, there's no shame in looking at another company who does it really well and looking at what they're doing and asking yourself, not to just do the same, but like ask yourself, why did they do it the way they did it? To try and understand it. Because these companies spend millions of dollars trying to get the exact phrasing that gets them the downloads that they need. And when you're a startup, you don't really have the resources to spend that much. And so being able to look at what they've done and ask yourself, why did they do it like this? And piece together some logical reasoning, then allows you to go into your product and say, all right, I'm going to go and do this because this is how it applies to mine.
I love it. They had some fun while learning, if doing, keep growing, else bummer. I love it. All right, let's get into Refa's paywall. Oops, all right, let me minimize everything. Get to my Android version. Oh, thought I had it up. Here we go. All right, student path. Continue with Google. Then we got the paywall here. Business is for free. Computer science paid. Okay. See what I'm paying for. It's only $10. Enable free trial. A little bit more if you do. A little bit less if you don't. I like this paywall. What do you think, Michael? Anything on this paywall?
I would, when it comes to paywalls and the details of these things, I would look for a way to A/B test. I think that's the best thing. There are so many little decisions when it comes to that paywall screen that are unintuitive, that are like unexpected, that just come out of the way that the buttons are. If a button is red instead of green, people are more likely to click it sometimes. If the, you know, do you want to have enable free trial enabled by default or disabled by default? You don't know. We don't know. It's hard to guess. And when you test them one at a time, it's hard to really compare the data and say, well, which one is the better option long term? And so you want to come up with some kind of A/B testing system where you have maybe a dozen different variations being tested on the App Store. And then you're able to see from there which of the versions is performing better, try a different, a bunch of different tweaks, and do so iterating like through it until you get to, a much better experience. That's my feedback when it comes to that stuff, because it's different for every app. It's different for every phone, for every user base, markets, and so on. And it's the fastest way to test it. The one thing I would say is maybe the text is very small for a lot of the things on there. I would take out a lot of that stuff and try and summarize it. And if the user wants to drill down, they can, but there's a lot of text going on. And sometimes it goes a long way to make it easier for a user to read by putting it a little larger. I think another hint I've used for helping people read is putting little icons or little emojis or anything next to every point.
Yeah.
When doing that, it's very easy to when you see images, right? You see these images next to the points, it just makes it easier to read because the image immediately like puts your mind into like eliminating the possible words that are not related to that icon. And so it actually makes you faster at reading when you see like an icon and then you have to read the sentence, because your brain's already eliminated 80% of the words that don't fit that icon. So the iconography next to the words allow you to skim through very quick. So those are other tricks too.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think one thing I would add is not a lot of people scroll. I learned this the hard way. So you right now, I have to scroll to see your start free trial. So I might lead with the benefit, move this down a bit, and make sure whatever the benefit is, it's invest in yourself, sure, but it's mainly probably like land your job, maybe that's what students are thinking. So whatever the students are here for, get the best application, have the skills to land your first job, all that stuff, stand out from the crowd, and then make sure your call to action, your start free trial or whatever it is at the top, because a lot of people will not scroll.
Yep.
I love what Michael says.
I love that. I love the, land your first job. Like, I think that would be a great tagline for the App Store too. I think that's like such a good selling point. And I agree with you completely on the scrolling. Maybe having, have like the button to purchase and to get the premium pinned to the bottom. Yeah. And then if you have all that content, you can scroll it above, but that stuff always gets locked and visible at the top and the bottom there.
I love it. Yep. And Michael's right. You got to A/B test. Like, everything is worth, especially on this paywall. Love it.
And Firebase, I would say, is the best for a lot of the analytics. For me, I love it for configuration. People like Nikita Beer used it for his app with some of the folks that they worked with Dave Schatz and some others. And so I would definitely say, go with something simple. It doesn't need to be too complicated.
I love it. Naveen says, I'm working on a social network app for 13 plus. What licenses should I take before launching?
Okay, so social networking apps, very important. If you're building something social, you have to be mindful of the various laws in every single jurisdiction that you're going to launch in. And so this means every country has its own laws about these things, especially if you're building for children. If you're building anything 13 to 18 years old, you have to be careful because the laws are the strictest. The app stores are also very strict about this, and for good reason. You don't want to miss any of those compliances in any of the different countries. Europe has a whole new set of compliances that they didn't have in the past. In the US, you have something called COPPA compliance, which is for under 13. But even for those 13 to 18, you have to have certain things. In the App Store, for example, on iOS, blocking, reporting, there's a whole number of reporting flows that you need to have supported in your product, and you need to make sure you have something that's able to delete accounts as well. So that's something new on the iOS App Store they didn't have in the past. If your product does not let users delete their account completely and all of their data, Apple will not accept your app on the App Store. And so there's a lot of these different things for, building a social network with kids. You got to be careful with, and you have to have moderation from the start. Apple won't accept you otherwise.
I love it. All right. M Hunter says, I've asked this before, but she's still mystified. I think it's the she, but mystified by the comment. People tend to click buy, subscribe, continue more if the button is red above green.
So, okay. It depends. I've seen some people say that. I've seen some people show that in other contexts, it's not. Depends on the theme of the app, depends on the country, depends on the region. I think this is why you want to just A/B test the different colors. Facebook, when I used to work at Facebook, there was something like, I don't know how many dozens of shades of blue were tested for perfecting like the perfect color of blue that's the most tappable, right? And so like these are different, right? These are all types of experiments, and you can go all sorts of directions of trying to find the right color. I think there's the example of red is better, maybe works in some cases, maybe doesn't. A/B testing is the way to go with it. And I would focus on testing some of the bigger things before you get into the smaller ones. But if you feel like you've reached a maximum with a lot of the other, like improvements that you could have made, going into color is always a good option too. One thing to consider if you're building for Android is that different displays show colors in different ways. And so if you are going to be testing color, have a couple of sample devices around, or ask your friends to show you what it looks like on their phone, so that you're able to get a sense of, does this red really look bright red, or does it look muted, or does this green look good, right? And something to consider as well.
No, Michael, that's a great point, because this green looks way brighter on my screen, but you guys are getting the muted version. I'm like, whoa, this is like punching me in the face type of green. So but yeah, yes, I agree with you. Like sometimes, look, Facebook does it because you're impacting billions of users. So like a 1 to 10% lift is huge. If you're not that size, then stop worrying about these little things. I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like get to that size first and then start worrying about it. So it's usually the people who are asking probably don't have the size. People who already have the size are probably already doing it.
That's right. Exactly. And so in that sense, it's just A/B testing. And if you don't have enough users to A/B test, let's say you don't have enough users to like see data on whether or not something works or not, just grab the most popular app that's getting the highest conversion and do what they're doing. Exactly. That's what I do. I think it's pretty simple. They've spent the time A/B testing for you. If they're the same audience, just go for it. I always think like, as long as you understand the reasons why they built what they built and how they designed their flow, it's okay to learn from those reasons and apply them to your product. If not, if you just copy for the sake of copying, you're gonna like mess up in the approach, and not get it right. So there's an art to being inspired.
I love it, man. All right, last question. Aman says, what point do you track? So what most important events do you track? He's confused between Firebase, Mixpanel, and PostHog. What is the most important metric? Aman, we talked about this in the past, and Michael, feel free to chime in here. The onboarding, track all the pages on the onboarding, your paywall views, and then your aha moment, right? And that's it, right? So you want to see most people who open your app see the paywall, and then hopefully most people who open your app also do get to that aha moment. And those are at this point, that's all you really need in the very beginning. Feel free to jump in or disagree.
No, I completely agree. I think when it comes to tracking analytics, you want to see how often they click on certain buttons and how often they viewed a screen and didn't click on the button. So anytime you're trying to get someone to click on something, you want to track how many people can see the button when they see it, and how many of those people then click the button. And that really is kind of base of it. So
I love it. Yeah. Short and sweet. Well, guys, it is Social AI. That is the app. Michael's a great follow on Twitter as well, but his LinkedIn is linked up into the podcast app. And then we're going to put in, I've already asked my team to put in the tweet that made the app go viral. And that's all he did. He tweeted this. Study it because I think you can learn a lot from it. It's personal, it's vulnerable. It really talks more about the mission rather than features. So study it, rephrase it, and then, as you launch, do the same. Michael, if the audience wants to connect with you in any other way, do you want to send them anywhere else, my friend?
No, I would say send me a DM, show me your app. I'd love to see it. I'd love to reshare some stuff. And I'd love to offer feedback whenever I can. I appreciate it so much.
That's awesome, man. You might get a lot of people asking then while you open the Pandora's box. Michael, dude, having seen you before you could even possibly drive, Michael, congratulations on all the success, my friend. You're great. You're an inspiration to us all. And like, I'm lucky that we got to do this one more time.
I'm so glad too. It's great to see you again. And it's been awesome to see, what you've been able to do too over the years. And it's so great to catch up after so many years too.
I know, man. It's crazy. All right, guys, we're going to talk to the founder of WeWard tomorrow. So join us every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, live on YouTube.